Hello, in this recording I'd like to do a demonstration of a design proposal that I came up with after thinking about the call we had 10 days ago and the requirement to be able to use the placement in the matrix to drive compensation guidelines on the compensation module. So I came up with a design that's inspired by what I mentioned in the call, which is that we can use the integration center to automatically send the overall objective rating and the overall competency rating to an MDF object, which can then feed the compensation module's standard rating column, which itself can drive the guidelines that will show on screen. So first, let's talk about this person here. Michael Pittman in this example is a manager. He did the performance review for Allison, who reports to him. And we can see that the process is completed. And so there was a discussion in our call about the fact that in some cases there were exceptions where the performance forms were not completed in the current process because in some cases managers had to enter comments to justify why they wanted to have the ratings changed. So in this case, if we look at the detail of this performance form I built, so we have the objective competency with the same thing that I saw in the demo in your environment, the competency rating objective, the placement, which eventually we'll use on the comp worksheet. And at the bottom, instead of having editable comments and leaving the performance form in an editable step of the process, we send it to completed. And if the manager wants to request a change, they can write to a generic email that you set up by Eastman, and they can request the change to be to an administrator. The administrator can then route this form back to an editable step of the workflow where the manager can change the ratings here. And maybe add comments as well. So we're going to do an example in this call, but before I do an example, I'd like to explain how everything is built. So this is the only thing that would change with this design, this automated design from the current design, and then the rest will all be automated, and we'll see it in this call. So what happens if, so in this case, we see meets expectation and substantially exceeds expectation. Um, and we see that so what happens is that these ratings are going to flow into the standard trend portlets on the employee file. So if we go to the employee file, we navigate to Allison's profile, we will see that the data is showing under OBJ competency for compensation. And we can see 3 meets expectation, 5 substantially exceeds expectation, and then we pick this data up through an integration center job and we send it to an MDF object, which then feeds compensation. The problem is this will be blank if the worksheet is in a non-completed status. So as soon as we route the worksheet back to non-completed status, if the manager wants to make edits, this will disappear. Luckily, it won't disappear in managed data in the MDF object that we initially populated with the first values. It will keep the current values and only update the delta. So that's what's great about the design. So from here, and I have to go back as a system administrator now. We pick up the data and we send it to an MDF object, which through an integration job. So first I want to show you the MDF object, and I just realized in order to finalize this demo, I need to make a quick change on the design of the MDF object to add a business rule again to it that I modified. So I'm just going to add the business rule quickly. She needs to be here. Yeah. Okay, so when we build the integration center job, which is essentially an API, we're going to pick up these values that we saw in the trend portlets of Allison Mahoney, and we're going to send them to this MDF object here. And there is a rule on the MDF object. We have 3 fields. We have the custom objective rating, the comp rating, and the placement. And the placement is going to be overridden once the objective and competency flow from these portlets to the MDF object. Then we have a rule that's going to say if the rating is equal to, the objective rating is equal to meets expectation and comp rating is substantially exceeds expectation, then set it to a number, a unique number that will be unique for each combination of values. So probably we'll have up to 9 or so. And then once we have this number is going to be matched to a rating scale. which we created specifically, placement for comp. And then I only created two different cases here. And then we're going to be able to get the value into compensation and have it displayed as a label in compensation thanks to this. So let's do an example of how it works. Let's say Michael Pittman, we're routing the form back to him. He wants to edit something. So we're going to do route form as a system administrator. He wrote to us. He wants to edit something. So we're going to do form template, ObjComp, PM with ObjComp, search, pick up the form for Allison, move the form back to a specific step, manager review. Actually, probably in the to be process, we should probably have performance review discussion is better. Next, after calibration. And so what we're going to see here is that if we go back as Michael Pittman and we navigate to the profile, we'll see, like I said in the beginning, the ratings in those trend portlets disappear. So if I go to Allison's profile and I look at the same portlets that I looked at the beginning, now we're going to see that it's empty. Yeah, it's empty. So it will repopulate once we route the form back to completed. So as Michael, what we want to do is change, and we want to use one of the two combination of ratings that I created for this demo. So we're going to change the objective rating to be exceeds expectation. Now we have a different combination. We save. Potentially we can enter comments to explain why we made the change. Save and close. And then either he sends it to the next step and it goes through the signature again until it's completed, or an administrator routes it for him. Yeah, so I have to go back as an administrator to quickly route it back to completed. Next. Move to a specific step, completion. And so now the values are going to show again because the form is now completed. So if I go, I also have visibility on this ObjComp section. So if I go as a system admin to Allison, we'll see the values are now back and they're updated with the new objective rating of exceeds expectation. And so from here, how does it all flow back to the MDF object, which is going to be then used for compensation? So from here, basically, we have two integration jobs, integration center job, which are APIs. And these will we can trigger them multiple times a day or once a day. And we have two. We have one for competencies and one for objective, but they're feeding the same MDF object eventually. So they're here under my integrations. If we go to the bottom, we'll see them: train data, system overall competency schedule, and system overall objective schedule. In our case, we're just going to run this one, not this one, because only the objectives changed. And so we just want to do, we saw the content for Allison earlier in the call, that we saw that the rating was set to meets expectation. Now we change it to exceeds expectation. So by running this now, we're going to make sure that it flows to the MDF as exceeds expectation. And again, this is just for this demo. In reality, this will be scheduled to run automatically and be picked up either multiple times a day or once a day. So I think I already clicked. Yeah. Yeah, job was submitted. So now we can go, so we can track the completion of the job if we go to Integration Center, and in the middle there's a tab called Monitor Jobs. So we can click on Monitor Job, Monitor Integration, and then we can see that the integrations are here. I could completed successfully and the timestamp. And so now we're going to check that the data flowed correctly by going to Manage Data, which is where we can see the data from MDF objects. We can do ObjComp ratings from PM form and pick Allison Mahoney. And now we can see that the objective rating was set to exceeds expectations. And the placement, yeah, the placement is 2. So let's take a look actually at that. Did we have in the business rule? Just want to check something quickly, make sure we have everything captured. So we have a placement of 2, which is so each combination that flows into the MDF will be a unique number. But now we need to make sure this rating scale is updated because, yeah, no, it's correct. Exceeds expectations and meets expectations. So that's all correct. It's aligned with what we got in terms of number and what the rating scale is aligned to. So now all we have to do is just basically launch the comp worksheet to make sure that it flows correctly. So as we're going to go to comp home. And here, manage worksheets, create worksheet for Michael Pittman. And the worksheet is going to go to comp admin. And will reflect the right rating in the rating column, and then it will have its own set of guidelines. I also edited the guideline to have different guidelines based on whether we are here or whether we are at objective is meets expectation. So now let's do something interesting and let's modify the data in the MDF object directly. Only for the fields called, so we're not going to do the whole thing again of routing the worksheet and triggering integration center. These will work. These will get picked up and update your MDF for you. But I just want to show that if the MDF object changes the value through the integration center, it will be reflected on the comp worksheet and it will even update the guidelines. So if we do, for example, if we go back to manage data as an administrator and we change, well, first I need to, I want to look at my business rules and what I built in them because I think there may be a little gap there. Before I do any change on the MDF, I want to do it the right way, so I am going to I want to make sure I got the right thing, the right test case. So right now we're at 2. We've got comp rating is substantially exceeds expectation. No, I think we had a rating of meets expectation. Okay, that's fine. It's just it. We're going to test now that this actually works. So we're going to change this to be meets expectation, the comp rating as it is currently. So that's the current case, I think, in the MDF object for Allison. It gave us 2. I think 2 is the value that I had before, and it didn't work because it didn't update it because there was the business case was different. And so here we're just going to change substantially exceeds expectation to be we're going to change the comp rating from being meets expectation to substantially exceeds expectation, and that's going to give us a rating of 1. Right, I'm just going to have to realign everything here. Exceeds expectation on comp here, and meets expectation, and then exceeds expectation. Oh, this is confusing. I'm just going to do the same everywhere. Meets expectation equal 1, and then meets expectations and exceeds expectation for comp rating. No, I'm going to do the comp rating because on the rating scale it shows the objective first because it's ObjComp. So meets expectation on comp rating, and then meets expectation 1, and then exceeds expectation equal 2. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so now we want to set it back to 1. So what we're going to do is, that's just what I want to finish with. So if we go to manage data, what we didn't really see because it got taken care of but through the integration job is the way this business rule works that defines the placement. So we're going to do, we're going to manually update it, and it gets updated also if it comes from the integration center job. So right now we have a combination of 2, and what if we do meets expectation and meets expectation, which is the one we said was going to return 1. So if we do save, on save it's giving us 1. And now if we do take action, meets expectation, exceeds expectation, it's giving us 2. And this unique number is matched in the back end to this rating scale, and that's what's going to drive what shows on the compensation screens. So rating scale, yes, so now we need to edit this. So first one was, I think, meets and meets, if I remember correctly, and then second one's exceeds and meets. Yeah, and so now we're all aligned. And to finish with, I'm going to show you how it looks, how it's mapped in the compensation worksheet, and that will conclude our demo. So if I go to comp home and do my template here, so the rating, the PM rating column has nothing on it. It just stays the same as it probably currently is. So I'm just going to show it to you here, overall performance rating. So it's the standard rating called PM rating. It has no mapping to EC. It's read-only equal no. That doesn't really matter anyways. And then it's really here that we are going to map and get the value from the MDF object. So we say salary performance management form, and we do it like this. So completed only equal no, use calculated rating no, and then we do none in performance forms, and then we go and pick the MDF object through EC category, employment details, EC field, placement. So we just navigate to first employment detail, and then we'll see this, and then we just get the placement field. So that gives us a number, and then because we've selected the scale as placement for comp, the system takes the number that is in placement and matches it with the label of the rating scale for each number and gives us the right value. And then we have also a guideline here that will that is based on the combination. So if it's 1, if it's greater than or equal than 1 and less than 2, so which means 1, then we're going to get 2 to 4. If it's 2 to 3, then we're going to get 5 to 6. And I think right now we're getting, what did I put in the MDF? Actually, that would be a good test case. So I think we put 1, so now we're going to get let's make sure I got 1 before I do the test case. No, yeah, so I'm glad I checked because initially we had, so we're just going to do here meets and meets. It's going to give us one, and now we had two in the worksheets when we first opened it and looked at it. So now we want to test that it updates on the worksheet. So if we go here, we have now one now, and so we do comp admin. And we just reopen the worksheet. If you don't open the worksheet immediately, you can also schedule a job to mass update the worksheets. And when you open it here, we can see the new rating updates and the guidelines updates too. So if you look at the recording again and you look at where we were initially, we can see that the number changed. We reopened the worksheet or we ran mass update and then the rating changed, and so the guideline changes too. So I think that concludes the demo. I think we have a way to automate everything. Unfortunately, we can't really read directly from the performance module in an integration center job. I've asked some integration experts to look at it, but they weren't able to make it work either. So I think this is the best acceptable design to automate everything. The only thing is to tweak the performance route map to make sure that the forms are not they go to completed first, and we only manage a step and we only route back the exceptions. So when people write to that email, we route back, they edit, and it goes back to completed, and then it all flows to automatically with these integration jobs that are scheduled. It all flows back correctly to compensation while compensation is happening. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.